Okay. All right, I'm gonna get the phone.
Okay.
Okay, hopefully we're going live. This is new software again for us. So we're going to move through this longevity lecture, and sorry about the light in the background. So we're going to go through this longevity lecture as an intro to longevity. And the intro to longevity, really what we want to focus on is a lot of things. So we're going to give some basic definitions first. And some of you who are in this space, who are in the longevity world, know that there is this idea of how do we live longer? How do we become our peak? How do we elevate our health status? How do we take ourselves from riddled with disease to reversing disease to advancing our health status, taking us from a status of here and bringing us up here? And so there are some basic concepts I want to introduce today. My goal is to show you a little bit about what our longevity program includes, some of the key concepts. And so these are general concepts. And some of you who may have some interest in our longevity plan, we can talk to you more about that. Some of you who may be watching or may watch this in the future as a recording may be interested in some of these key plans. And so these key plans are going to have, where's your health status now? We're going to meet you where you're at, and we're going to take you through this process of restorative health, optimizing your health, and really putting you in this peak performance, optimal higher self, if you will, and elevating you to a level of thriving again. And that's going to mean something different for everybody, of course. So really what we're trying to do is create this Redesign MD longevity plan for you, which we've already designed, and wrap it around you and support you on this. So a lot of times, most of medicine in general over the years has been a diagnostic tool. And our goal is to try to take us from diagnostics to advanced diagnostics to the interventions, lifestyle pieces, and really propel you to improving your health status, and hopefully protecting your health. And so what we're going to say is something that most of my patients know about me is we talk about these two overarching concepts. And one of the most common things accepted in the longevity literature today is that inflammation, whenever we reduce it, we live better, we live longer, there's less significant illness, we feel better, our bioenergetics are better. And so our goal with this is to show you that inflammation is not only the root cause of disease, but it's also the side effect of disease. So we really need to and really allow you to know that not only do we measure inflammatory markers, but we have supplemental nutrition that could lower that, the diets, the exercise, the sleep we choose as part of this restorative health process is going to move you in that direction. So inflammation is one of these overarching concepts that we look at as sometimes little bits of inflammation are restorative and turn on the regenerative pathways, but sometimes they get in the way and they cause horrible diseases like atherosclerosis and cancer and neurodegenerative conditions and metabolic diseases and other degenerative conditions with autoimmunity. So we'll talk more about that. But again, this is more of a conceptual landscape for you today. So oxidation, diseases related to oxidation, as you can see here, are all of the diseases we battle every day. This is conventional medicine, right? When our body goes through too many oxidative changes, we have damage. We have damage to our DNA, to our structural tissues, which then turns on the inflammatory cycle. So two overarching concepts I want you to be thinking about here are inflammation and oxidation. And if we can reduce those for the most part that are out of control, we're going to propel you to a status of more optimal wellness and turning on some of these longevity signals to improve health, restore health, regenerate health. And so if there's one thing that I do like, it's this precision health model, this 4P approach that we call a proactive health, precision medicine, where we use genetics and lifestyle wellness and personalized health choices with the interventions to really get you to think about how we're going to approach medicine And some people call it medicine, concierge medicine 3.0, precision medicine 3.0, advanced medicine 3.0, where we've moved well beyond the conventional world of medicine that I work in the ER still is very much precision medicine, or I should say medicine 1.0, 2.0, where we're still really just putting out flames and trying to get people stable just to get them back home again. So this preventive care strategy model where we prevent disease, we go way upstream here, folks, and we turn off the faucet. We don't just keep mopping up the floor. So when we do those things and we're proactive, we could be more predictive with our analytics. We could be more predictive with what we call lead indicators, the things that we put in place today, so we can predict how your health is going to be 3 and 6 and 12 months from now. And they've done this with the longevity literature. We've really had a huge impact on that. So and then once we get your health to a status of maybe we're at the point of restoring you, you might be at the point of let's optimize your health. Let's protect that health. Let's turn on the machinery, the lifestyle core pieces of medicine, whether it's through supplemental nutrition, dietary approaches, consistency, and really turn all of these on. But we can't protect something that we don't have yet. So we've got to invest back into your health to get to that point again. And so, Peter Attia called this the 4 horsemen. A lot of people have copied this now, but these 4 horsemen are the biggest contributors to our health and disease, health decline and disease. And we all know these as the atherosclerosis, which is heart attacks and strokes, or congestive heart failure, the inability to function well, neurodegenerative conditions, which the 2 most common are Alzheimer's, dementia, as well as Parkinson's disease. But there are several others out there. Cancer is this uncontrolled abnormal growth of abnormal cells. It's life-threatening. It disrupts disease. It causes that oxidative inflammatory storm that we just talked about. And the goal is to go upstream and look for cancer at the early stages and hopefully prevent it before it even gets there, is what we call primary prevention. So the goal is, you guys, let's go upstream. Let's prevent these diseases before they arrive. But these are the big guys that we want to try to really clamp down on. And so cancer, metabolic diseases, diabetes, of course, is a big one. So, when we think about comprehensive longevity wellness, we think about, let's get some baseline assessments first. How do we do that? Well, most places out there, and a lot of you have heard of this place called Functional Health. Functional Health is somewhere where you can get 500 different blood markers through Mark Hyman's functional wellness platform. Well, I believe the wait list is significant at this point. And what I tell our patients all the time is we already get the functional biomarkers. We already get those things that you would pay another $500 for online. But in addition to that, we give you comprehensive, very predictive precision planning specific to your case, specific to your illness, specific to your health goals. And that might be specific to your genetic markers or your biochemical or physiologic markers. And so our idea here is to create this comprehensive, including all these advanced biomarkers, into your individual plan. So we know exactly what we're doing. The path is very clear ahead of us with these individual biomarkers. Advanced cancer tools that we have access to are whole body MRIs with discounts, whole body cancer screening tools such as the Galleri screening for those at higher risk of inheritable cancers such as breast cancer, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancers, the colorectal cancers. We can do these polygenic scores and look to see if you're at increased risk of these things that cut our life short before we even get to thrive again. So our goal is, hey, let's do some baseline assessments, make sure we don't have anything in our way to allow us to really thrive and succeed and reach those peaks in our health status. With cardiac health, we have got cutting edge diagnostics that we also look at. I always tell people, yes, we're so cholesterol centric with our health. However, we need to look at the anatomy. We need to look at your structural health. most of the things we look at in cardiac health in the blood work, they're just risk factors. But when we look at your anatomy with an ultrasound on the carotids, which we're going to have our ultrasound in our clinic here within 2 weeks, or we look at the heart with a coronary calcium scan, or with a CT angiogram with AI software overlays that really show us the complexity of the plaques and where they exactly are, how friable they are, what is your real risk of disease. Well, looking at the anatomy is the best way to do that. So we've got the advanced tools to look at those four horsemen, to really go upstream and look at how insulin resistant are you. Even though your hemoglobin A1C might say 5.5, we can still see signs of insulin resistance there. So we want to really dig in and look at, are you nutrient deficient? Let's look inside the cell for nutrients, not just in your serum that most providers look at. So we can take deep dives here into your root causes of your health. So yes, there is a difference between lifespan and health span. Some of you, I have a lot of people that come in here and say, it doesn't matter how long I live. I just want to live well while I'm here. It's the years and quality of years while I'm here that matter most. Well, here's the good news, is that if you focus on your health span, your lifespan increases as well. You can't discern those. It's what we used to call with weight management. If done well, if we're focusing on weight management well, it is health management. They're one and the same. Health span is lifespan. So if you don't want to live longer and live well longer, then you can't separate the two. So we want to focus on these lifestyle and environmental factors that do determine your lifespan. And so, but optimizing the health span insights by focusing on that do matter. How do we get you to live well today and tomorrow and 3 months from now? That leads to years later, even though what matters is, how do we lower your risk of disease? How do we lower the risk of cancers, heart disease, the four horsemen, and allow you to thrive and become the best you can be? Maintain the faculties of memory and cognitive functioning, and degenerative joint disease with optimal regenerative capabilities, such as platelet-rich plasma or certain peptides that may play a role, although limited research is out there. But we can put it all together and enhance the synergistic plan for these things. So our goal, again, think about the 4 Ps. Think about the 2 overarching concepts of inflammation and oxidation. Think about the 4 horsemen and going upstream very early with the assessments, so we can really put those flames out on inflammation and oxidation. And so those diseases don't show their faces to us and cut our lives short. So yes, so normal health aging today, our goal with optimal longevity is to live well as long as possible, right? You see that the average person lives over 30,000 days, and 5,000 of those tend to be sick days. Our goal is to squeeze morbidity so we're sick just at the very end of life. And so that's the difference between health span and lifespan. So some key biomarkers of aging that we do measure and that we can measure in certain circumstances is your telomere lengths, which are the very tips of your chromosomes. When those chromosomes get too short, it's game over. There's no more life left. Either that organ fails, you end up with severe disease, or we can potentially slow down that shortening of your chromosomes and your DNA, so we can keep the regenerative pieces going and turned on. This idea of epigenetic patterns, we can start to look for epigenetic shifts now in your lifestyle with wearable devices. I have my Apple Watch on. There's the Whoop. There's the Oura Ring. There's other technologies out there. We wear continuous glucose monitoring systems, so we can see these shifts in the epigenetics and your biological age markers, so we can start to correct that before we measure it way downstream. Our goal is to correct these now. Our goal is to really hit home on the assessment tools, so we can put in place the interventions to keep you younger, aging, keep your cellular health younger. And that's the whole idea behind this thing called senescent cell levels. The senescent cells are the cells that are are lower our regenerative capacity in aging. We want the new fresh cells. And so there's mechanisms that we can turn on for these key markers to improve on. So here are some hallmarks of aging that we've looked at for a while, and most of these are molecular. So telomeres that we just looked at and we talked about. As we age, we only have a certain amount of base pairs at the ends of our chromosomes. When they shorten to a certain amount, we either become diseased or our life is cut short. And so our goal here is to really dig in and turn on the cellular mechanisms. I still work in the emergency department. I see people holding onto the rails of life in the bed and clinging to what's most important to them. And, my only wish for them is we could have gotten a hold of them sooner and hopefully made some differences sooner with these misfolding proteins that now they have all these diseases that now we're just managing it and trying to extend life with some modern medications, which doesn't work very well. Usually those medications have side effects, and as powerful as some of them are, they're kind of last-ditch efforts. They don't change molecular causes of aging. They don't change proteostasis. They don't impact longevity other than for a very short time. So there's a concept that some of you may hear of called mitochondrial aging. And mitochondrial aging, we have this organelle in every cell that you can see by the picture in the background. And that organelle called the mitochondria, when those are damaged, in fact, the mitochondria even have their own genetic material in them. When they're damaged, when the structural proteins are damaged to them, the entire organ starts to fail. This is where we get our energy. So any of you out there who are saying, man, I am fatigued, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, I've had mold, I've had Lyme disease, I've had vascular diseases, I guarantee your mitochondrial is damaged. And our goal is to reach in there with good lifestyle factors to impact the cellular mechanisms. And we can do that through dietary lifestyle. We could do that through exercise and restorative sleep and less stress, controlling the environment so we're not polluted with an enormous amount of toxins with these ultra-processed foods. And so there's a lot of things we can do to affect the oxidative stress impact, to reduce the DNA mutations on our mitochondria so they continue to function well, and impact our energy pathways with really impacting our mitochondrial health. So a question that comes up commonly with people with longevity pathways is, should I do an epigenetic clock? Should I do a biological aging clock? We have that. We have the True Health clock, and it's a good one. It looks at epigenetic aging. It looks at the methylation signatures, and it will give you a biological age. And the good news is they've studied that clock, and when they've implemented wellness mechanisms, when they've put people on a few supplements, literally, I believe it was 5, when they had them exercise and sleep and eat well and stress less, and they turned on the stuff that we have evidence for in terms of longevity, and these people within 3 months changed their biological age. So we know this can happen with every single person out there. So if you have disease, even more reason. If you don't have disease and you have a strong family history, let's go upstream and make sure we look for those things. And then let's turn on these mechanisms. And the mechanisms through the functional health perspective is we look at things called the pillars of health. We look at your gut microbiome and your health, which is really low-hanging fruit for inflammation. It's a big source of inflammation because your immune system lives there. Your neurotransmitters live there. If mood is a problem, we need to look at the gut. If cognition is a problem, we have to look at the gut. There's a marker released in the gut microbiome, which is one of our pillars, that pollutes the vascular system. So the gut, what we eat, how we take care of our microbiome matters. And again, it goes back to what are we eating? How do we impact that? How do we create a lifestyle and a plan around that? And so with our other pillars, the environment and the toxic load that we take in, well, that can pollute our mitochondria. That could pollute our structural proteins, our DNA proteins. That can really have an impact. So we can test for those things. We can test for toxins. We can test for all sorts of other uh, enzyme dysfunctions and nutritional deficiencies, all sorts of patterns of inflammation or oxidation. So we put these biomarkers with these epigenetic clocks and these methylation clocks together, and we form a really good picture of where you're headed, what's predictable in your health, that's predicted in the near future. So we've got some great tools to use, but the biological biomarkers of aging is really what this functional health is about online. And so many of you may have been to a functional health doctor, maybe even a longevity clinic. And so um, they're going to list a lot of biomarkers. And if all they're there to do is to sell you labs and to sell you supplements, beware. There's a couple things, that I think you need to really be aware of is when you're looking for a longevity clinic, if it's all about selling you a bunch of stuff, I want you to know that you need to have someone that has your best interest at heart. How long are they taking on your intake? How long are they understanding your history, your genetic history, your biomarker history? Do they understand it? Is it an MD or a DO who's evaluating your assessment, or a practitioner who really has done some deep dives into understanding this type of thinking, who understand how to shut down the four horsemen and be more proactive and predictive and protective? And so, we really need to form a precision model that's specific to you. They need to check those cardiovascular markers with a reliable lab like Cleveland Heart Lab. They need to look at the anatomy through some of the mechanisms I told you about, the inflammatory markers, the precision monitoring with some of the wearable devices that we'll talk about as well. So physical activity is critical, balanced nutritional habits, sleep and stress management. These are really the foundational pieces. And I know this is a very basic slide. We get specific with you. We will give you precise. In fact, I just had a patient said, give me the whole thing. Give me it very specifically, how I need to exercise each week. What precision health plan do I need? Look at this. I'm getting a text on my phone. They need blood in the hospital. They need typo blood. I'm sure a lot of you have seen these, but there's a lot of truth behind that. We have so much disease, and that it's a constant. What else do they need to put out the flames? And so we're in the cold and flu season. I guarantee your mitochondria is stressed. If you're not eating well, sleeping well, that's what supports your immune system to get through this. It's not the vaccine. It's your immune system is supported through your lifestyle habits. That's the biggest impact player. When you look at the folks that did not do well with COVID, and I feel horrible for a lot of folks that did not. However, the people that did not do well are the people that have lots of comorbidity, that have a lot of diseases, a lot of illness. And so we want to make sure that we set you up for success. So if we do have an unexpected illness or some unexpected accident, that that you're set up for success because we're practicing these health habits. So the fitness pieces, I'll just, list a few here. If you're not doing VO2 max training weekly, you're not doing enough. We know this now. Intense exercise matters. We know that VO2 max matters. We know that it's the biggest predictor of longevity and health, not only with your health span, but with your lifespan as well. We know that strength matters. Strength is the muscle, the metabolic currency of metabolism. So if we're looking at metabolic diseases, then we need to add more muscle tissue to your frame. We need to keep that muscle tissue metabolically active, and we need to support it with appropriate protein intake and the right dose of strength work. We need to make sure you're moving otherwise with zone 2 activities. We've introduced exercise snacks recently, which I introduced to some of you recently, where it was 1 minute, three times a day, outperformed a 30-minute walk. Now, do we also want you taking that walk? Absolutely. But when you look at the intensity of the exercise, it just mattered that much that's happening. So these are key underpinnings and foundational pieces, right? Emphasize plant whole-based nutrition. This is what's going to support your microbiome. This is what's going to nourish the cells, and repair and recovery. These are the plant fibers that are going to support your microbiome. These are the prebiotics that everyone talks about these days. It's in the food. And so, when you look at the prebiotics that they make out there in the capsules, they're food products, they're plant fibers. And so they're short chain fatty acids, they're fermented foods, they're all of those things. But good quality protein sources also matter. And that could be good sources of meat products, animal proteins, as well as plant proteins. And so, two things I've always said is focus on the two P's for longevity: plants and protein, and avoid these ultra processed foods, these highly chemically laden foods that are just, these things are super concentrated with calories and completely devoid of nutrients. So we want these carotenoids and polyphenols and phytonutrients loaded in your foods. So we have to supplement less, but we do use supplementation, and we can add the supplementation in there where we find in your lab work when we do these NutriEvals and we look inside the cell to look at your antioxidant scores and to look at where you're depleted in your nutrient status. So sleep, I don't need to go through this, but sleep is mission critical. 7 hours or more is the critical piece where we show changes in longevity. It's very clear in the literature. Restorative deep sleep, these are your stages 3 and 4 of sleep. These are critical. So, again, this is going to also impact the gut microbiome. This is going to impact hormone status. So the powers of deep sleep are critical. If we're going to track epigenetics, if we're going to track your genetics and shifting, I believe wearables are invaluable. Not only do they create an awareness tool for you with a continuous glucose monitor or a Fitbit or an Apple Watch, an Oura Ring, a Whoop app, all of those things give us real-time evaluations of your patterns of behavior. So, AI is going to help with some of this when we apply AI in real time with your wearable devices and your biomarkers and your genetics. And we're going to put it all in one. And AI is going to be able to give us really top insights on where your health status is, where you are for longevity, and how do we move you from A to B. So this is really taking it to the next level. So, because I wanted to leave some time for questions. So the one of the things that I do have here is our plan overview is this. We have advanced diagnostics. We have a full plan with health coaching. We have the advanced diagnostics includes the cancer screening, includes the advanced cardiovascular with the anatomy look, with the inheritable genetic predispositions that you might have. So we can go way upstream to see if we can catch this either very early or, and of course, prevent it from even occurring. Metabolic diseases, doing advanced insulin resistance screening so we know if that's even a problem. And if it is, we have tools and capabilities of clamping down on that very quickly. So our goal is to take you to the next level. Our goal is to meet you where you're at, move this ahead. Redesign that name was so we can design your precision health plan, your longevity, wellness, peak health, optimal health, taking you to the next level plan. And if that's what you're looking for, make sure you're going to a provider that has good functional training, that has conventional, understands the diseases that exist out there, so we can clamp down on these with all of the advanced diagnostic tools that we have. I'm boarded in integrative medicine through the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. I'm boarded in family medicine. I have a master's degree in exercise physiology. I've been doing this medicine my entire life. This is what I was meant to do. So we put this all together as complete medicine, and that's the strength of it. We have a concierge clinic, of course, that we do some of this in, but those of our concierge members who want a full longevity plan, we do have the ability of implementing that. And we can talk about some of the plans that we do have, where we do cut huge discounts for our patients. And a lot of times we weave this into their concierge plan. But the goal here is, the goal is for you to thrive. The goal is for you to be your best self. And that we need you to help define that. So you're in the decision node. Do you continue on the path you're on, or do you take the next exit and consider a longevity plan that's built for you, that's precision, that has the best of technology available to it, that has practitioners here. We have another practitioner with me that has extensive training in this area. Our health coaches are functionally trained for advanced health management. And so we would love to partner with you in your health and take you to the next level. And so if this does interest you, please go to redesignmd.com and consider signing up for a discovery call so you can learn more about it and more how this might look for you as well. And so I realize that we did this last minute, but this was just a little intro into longevity medicine, just so you had some key concepts to think about. And maybe that is, tell me more about the advanced diagnostics. Maybe it's, tell me how you use supplemental nutrition. Maybe it's, where do we start? Some of you may have never done a real health plan before or had a health portfolio put together for you. And we have the ability to do that for you. So with that, I'm going to end it here. And I think we went about 30 minutes, which was a pretty good start. And I think what we'll do, is we'll have more of these. We'll break up certain parts of this in the future and talk about how to break down and how to shape a plan. But we're going to put some more health longevity plans together and some lectures so you all can get more factoids and more understanding about what that means for your future health. And I wish you all the best of health. Thanks for tuning in today. Hey, Heidi, if you're there, could you post some comments or questions there? Oh, here we go. If someone could only focus on 3 lifestyle changes for longevity, what would I prioritize? Yeah, so let me answer that real quick. So I would say, without a question, physical activity would be critical. Not only does VO2 max is one of the biggest predictive pieces, but that could be hard for some people. So just moving. These exercise snacks are a great way to start moving again. So I would say consistent daily activity. And as we would progressively add some intensity into there, I would add in the dietary pieces. And the dietary pieces would be the plants and protein, and get rid of the processed foods. Clean up your environment at home to make sure you're set up for success. So, you don't have, these ultra processed foods sabotaging your efforts. I'm glad somebody had asked about hormone decline, because I didn't add that in here. I was going to add that into our next talk. However, hormones are part of our advanced diagnostic workup, and we do an extensive hormone planning, and I would probably add hormones in there as well. But, probably sleep, diet, and exercise for the top 3. Those are easy things everyone could do at home. I shouldn't say easy, because sleep, it's the answer is easy, but it's more difficult to put into practice. But hormones. So hormones, there's a lot of hormones we include in here, right? So not just the sex hormones that everyone thinks about with testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, but we're also thinking about pregnenolone and DHEA and thyroid hormone, and even potentially growth hormone. Some people in their later years do have some level of deficiency, and there are ways we can improve their growth hormone without giving them growth hormone. The same with testosterone. When we get people strength training again and eating appropriate protein, sometimes their testosterone comes up. They're sleeping more. They reduce alcohol binging. All of that can improve your your testosterone levels. So, the hormone pathways can be critical. Melatonin, insulin, cortisol, all of those are hormones, and all of those we add to that full panel of sex hormones, including the growth hormones, including these secretagogue hormones that may play a big role with not only mood, health, bone density, body composition. All of those things are key markers of longevity and wellness. Let's see here. How often should advanced longevity labs be repeated to track meaningful change? Typically, we like to track them every 3 to 4 months. It all depends on the wellness status of the person that we're working with. However, we prefer the 3 to 4 months typically. Now, if somebody's already at their optimal phase and they're managing things differently, we could move to every 6 months. But what I like about the 3 to 4 month dialogue is that gives us time to retool. That gives us time to talk about and have dialogue around your health practices, to look at some of those wearables to see if you're having these epigenetic shifts and see if the lifestyle factors are not supporting the plan. So, and check to see if the hormones are still dialed in, to see if your cardiovascular risk markers are still in place, especially if there's some high risk genetics there. So, without a question, I think every 3 to 4 months with one large, what we do is we do a big annual exam where we include a lot of these advanced diagnostics, as we might not need these larger workups every 3 to 4 months, but at least once a year we do. And for some folks, we need to do them every 3 to 4 months. So, how often should advanced labs, to track meaningful change? I usually give 3 to 4 months, because with lifestyle measures, we've seen that change in the longevity literature. We've seen the biological clocks change. We've seen cardiovascular changes. Some of the anatomy tools we might only do every year, every 1 to 3 years, depending. But that all depends on the person as well. How do I tailor longevity strategies different for men and women? The hormones are a little different, but the principles are very similar. So, dietary benefits are very similar. We do try to really jump all over perimenopause before women go into full menopause, because there's significant health declines that do occur when that does happen. So we want to make sure that we're testing those perimenopausal hormones at that time as well. There are some bigger declines for some women, such as Alzheimer's disease. 2/3 of women get Alzheimer's disease. So we want to make sure we're doing some early brain activity, making sure we're checking an ApoE4 genetic status potentially on some of those folks. And for men, we need to be looking maybe at Parkinson's, which men get more often, or vascular diseases. And so, without a question, bone density is a big one for women that we need to check early. I'm a fan of checking some of these markers long before the insurance companies check some of these markers, like bone density. I think bone density should be checked in women in their 40s, so we get a baseline. And some women are shocked that they have, more fragility in their bones and lower bone densities much earlier in life. And a lot of that is predicted by their muscle density. So tools to measure body composition with skeletal muscle mass. And remember, skeletal muscle mass, when you look at a 35-year-old trained quadricep muscle and compare it to a 75-year-old, and you do a cross-sectional anatomy with a CT scan, they look identical. They look identical in the trained individuals. So in other words, if we keep you training as long as possible, especially past the age of 75, that's where these significant age declines occur. So we need to keep people moving, and we need to keep them, really dialed into to significant plans. And, it only requires about an hour a day, honestly, and not even an hour a day at first. Some days it's an hour. Some days it's less than that. I'm a fan of the 15-minute workout. I'm a fan of the 10-minute Peloton workout. So when time is tight, we can squeeze those in and still maintain really good health habits. And how we choose, how we, prepare our foods, how do we eat out, how do we do this as a traveling person? All of this could be tailored to either men or women. Men, we have different cancer predictive models for men and women, so we'll apply those, of course, as well. I think those are the big questions. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I hope this gave you some ideas around how to really start turning the screws on your health and taking it to the next level.